Yeah, I think some people have seen this photo.
Which
Uh,
one is which? Okay, yeah, you're on the right. Yep.
I think we were at like a Vanilla Ice concert or something.
You serious?
No,
Oh,
I think it was a prom. Me and
damn.
my lovely wife before before yeah, before life kicked in.
Who's the person you cut out of the picture?
That was probably her friend Stephanie Taylor. Uh, was her best friend at the time. So
How many
uh,
picture frames do you have in your house?
picture frames.
Yeah, with
Uh,
with old pictures like this.
no pictures of us like this. There's one picture of us that is framed that I can maybe put up next week. It's from like right after we met. This is probably a year into our relationship, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We actually have something very unique that a lot of well, nowadays it's not a big deal because we have camera phones everywhere. We actually have a Polaroid picture of the night we met. It was at a she was so her friend Stephanie who was cut out cut out of that picture not on purpose.
Yeah.
Uh uh so when I was in high school and then just out of high school, me and my friends used to try to sneak onto Kiowa Island, which is a resort island that you have to have it's got a guard gate and you have to have a pass to get onto it. And so we would, at the beginning of the summer, we'd have to find somebody who we could befriend, who could call us in a pass for a week. And then once we were in for that initial week during the summer, then you could meet people along the way and they could call you in a pass for the next week and the next week. And you could just kind of, you know, eventually too, we somehow, man, like our junior and senior year summers in high school, we figured out a way to like get someone to rent us a place too out there for like a week. And we're just high school kids. Now the place is not like that at all. I mean, we wouldn't be able to even get within, our bank accounts wouldn't have been anywhere near what they needed to be to rent anything out there. But at the time, you could rent places for not, not a lot of money a week. And but anyway, uh yeah, it was kind of a slow night out there. I'd gotten on the island and I couldn't find anybody to hang out with. And we were just always out there just to meet girls and stuff. I mean, that's why we were there. It was me and my cousin and my friend Michael and Stephanie, who I knew from parties and stuff. She came walking past and she's like, "Hey, my friend Kelly's having a party at her house, at her beach house." And I was like, "Cool, we'll show up." So uh and I was kind of trying to hook up with Stephanie a little bit anyway,
Yeah.
but
Still
uh
are. Yep.
that is not the case.
Yeah.
That ship sailed about 30 years ago. Um but but yeah, so we anyway, we knock on the door to this address at a house I'd never been to before, and Kelly answered the door, man, and dude, it was like literally one of those for
Damn
me
it.
it was just
Yeah.
one of those like moments. I mean, of course, you don't know you're seeing your future wife, but I mean, there was definitely like
Connection.
a mic
Yeah.
drop for me. Well, the connection was so strong too that when we went in the house, she sat down on this other dude's lap and she was hanging out with some other this dude. I think he was like a Georgetown swimmer or something.
Ugh.
Like a yeah, I know, right? Ugh.
Loser.
No, or Wake was it Wake Forest? It was Wake Forest. It wasn't Georgetown. Either way, he was a swimmer. His shaved legs. Uh,
He was in a speedo on the couch.
yeah. And they were doing shots all night, man. And I had to drive, so I wasn't doing shots, but I drank a beer. And there's a picture of me with a beer in my hand and Kelly off to the side and stuff. And that's really cool, man. Like the actual night we met, even though she was hooking up with somebody else for that week. She was doing the same thing we were doing because she had a house there. So like, every week it was just a new cycle of dudes for her, Not that she was like, you know, whoring around or anything, but like, just meeting guys and
Yeah.
doing hookups and stuff. So uh yeah, so but dude, it's crazy, man. She called me because there were again no cell phones, right? Well, I said I had a bag phone, but I didn't give anybody the bag phone number. I gave her my home phone number. I know my work number too, because Stephanie and her called me like the next day I was at work, and they called me, and uh, and Kelly and Stephanie was like, "Hey, Kelly wants to talk to you," and that was it, man. We hung out like every night for the rest of the summer,
That's awesome.
and then you know, uh, have been together ever since.
It would have been wild if you showed up at that island by you that's covered in monkeys. And you're like, this is, she lives here? This is
Monkey Island. She lives at Monkey Island.
Dr. Zayas.
Dude,
What a,
so I'm telling you, man. So look, we need to plan this trip that we've been talking about where you and Barry come
yeah.
down, we go fishing because the mahi are going to start running probably into this month. Um, so the fishing will pick up and be better. But dude, like Monkey Island is
Yeah,
like
what is that? Like, I
by
thought it was
boat.
fake.
No. There was a research facility there at one point, uh and at some point they shut that facility. There's another facility down there. Look, I told you a former friend of mine works at, not a former friend, someone I hadn't talked to in a while,
Yeah.
works at one of the research facilities. But yeah, the monkeys, they just left the monkeys on the island and they just run the island now. But you're not allowed to bow up your boat there or anything. I mean, you can try, but chances are you'll probably get caught. But dude, you can just see the monkeys everywhere from the shore.
Wild.
And but yeah, so I used to play in a band called Sheldon, um and we would rehearse down in Walterboro, South Carolina, which is like an hour and a half drive from me, from about hour drive from here for me, but it's down toward the direction of Monkey Island. And I would always hear people talk about how there were monkeys in the woods out there, like, just around in the woods down there around Walterboro and Sheldon, which is the place, and a place called Yemassee. Like South Carolina's got some interesting places, right? Uh, but one night, man, sure enough, driving back from band practice at like 2 a.m., uh, a monkey ran across the road in front of my car. The only one I ever saw. So there are monkeys like they made it off of the island, and they're somewhere in the woods, uh, down there too. So, but
Well,
it's
you
down near
live,
it's near Beaufort, South Carolina. Is where Monkey Island is. I forget what's the name of the Monkey Island. It's actually got a proper name. We just always call it Monkey Island.
it is
Like
called,
it starts with an M, like Murray Island or
yeah, Monkey
something.
Island, South Carolina. It is called Morgan Island.
Morgan Island. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we can take the boat down there and as long as the seas are laid down and we can, because it's quicker. Like if you run outside into the ocean and down, it's only one island down from me.
Right.
And that's kind of like a 30-minute trip out in the ocean that way. If we go inland around the island, it'd be a few hours.
With all the
So,
islands in the world, I wonder how many research facilities are actually on other places that have some animal that is now considered an invasive
well,
species.
I mean, we have a couple of goat islands here. There's a couple of different places. Oh, Goat Island and Little Goat Island. But there are goats on one of those too that just run around, and it's cool, man. The people that live on Goat Island's a little north of here, and it sits right between the Isle of Palms, which is a barrier island, and the intercoastal waterway. So you got the intercoastal waterway running behind Isle of Palms, and then you've got Goat Island on the other side. It's just this strip of land, and you can only get to Goat. People live out there. You can only get to Goat Island by boat. And Kelly and I looked at a couple of properties there because it's kind of neat. You just kind of take your boat to your house, and that's where you live. Um, but it's cool, man. They've got the flag for Goat Island is just a goat skull and crossbones. That's it. So
Oh, that's awesome.
everyone who lives there has like they're flying these goat skull and crossbone flags, and it's a cool place, man. People go out there, go to Goat Island to. I mean, it again. The houses aren't like some of them are shacks, some of them are like really nice houses, um, but there is no infrastructure there, and literally the island is just a long strip of land. So wherever your house is, it's really only enough room for one house. So you have a marsh view out of the back of your house and like a river view out of the front or whatever. And it's and like I say, you're by boat, you just kind of cross over to Isle of Palms and then you're at the ocean too, which is nice. But a lot of people go out to Goat Island to like do mushrooms and hang out during the summertime. That's it's definitely like a commune vibe out there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man. So we actually like recently we were boating past there and we're like, man, I wonder how much the properties are here. They weren't what I thought they would be. Actually, they were a bit more affordable than I
Yeah.
thought. But anyway,
What else is new with you?
what else is new with me?
Yeah. What else is new?
Uh, just writing a lot, writing book stuff a lot, writing a couple of different things. Um, man, what else is new? Like I live a boring life, John. I don't do anything, man. Like I get up in the morning, my routine, I'm such a routine person. I get up in the morning, I drink 2 bottles of water, drink 2 cups of coffee, look at YouTube while I'm doing that, take a shit, come out here. Well, so I've tried to change up my schedule. I used to work out after that, but I'm thinking I need a shift and I need to change. So what I've tried to start doing is working out in the middle of the day. I've tried this the last week, just to kind of shake things up a little bit. I come out here and get creative first before I
Right.
do my workout, uh, and then because I end my day being creative, so maybe that'll carry over to the next day for better or worse. Um, but yeah, man, and then I mean, sometimes I eat lunch, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I forget to eat lunch. I forget to eat lunch a lot. Um,
That's such an interesting concept. Like just forgetting to do something that the general consensus is that everyone has to eat lunch or breakfast or
yeah,
dinner. It's like I do this many times where I look into the last time I actually had breakfast.
yeah. I used to. I love breakfast. I'm a breakfast fanatic. But part of my self-discipline that works. Look, man, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like it works. All my self-discipline is intact all the time, but uh, I really try though.
Right.
Uh,
Look,
but one
peanut
of the
butter M&Ms. Yeah.
well, yeah, one of those things is fasting until 2 o'clock every day. So if I get up at 5 in the morning or I get up at 10 in the morning, either way, I'm going to try to fast till 2. Now, there are a couple days a week where Mrs. Bass wants to go get brunch and I have to just kind of be like, okay, we're doing brunch. But I have stopped with the chicken and waffles at brunch, which is my favorite, and
Oh,
I've started doing yogurts and salads and that stuff again because as I'm getting older, man, I'm hanging on to weight now that I used to not hang on to. And it's really I mean, my diet is not that bad by way of comparison to some other people, but I seem to hang on to the belly weight, the belly
yeah.
fat stuff like big time now, man. And I didn't really notice it that much until Sanjay and I were out running. Well, Sanjay wasn't running. Sanjay was filming me run for something, and I saw myself running on camera, and I was like, my stomach is moving up and down while I'm running. Like, I've never seen that because I've always tried to stay so trim in the front, and yeah, man, it really does get more difficult as you get older. But what's new with you? You're in a different city. I know that. I don't know if I should say where you are
Yeah, I'm
and what
in
you.
Nashville, helping old Hawk out with Morgan Wallen. And yeah, Nashville's kind of I've never been anti-Nashville.
Hmm.
We're just outside enough, like 10 miles outside the downtown area. But
Yep. Like
everyone's
Frank.
like super nice down here. Like it's almost like it catches me off guard. Like have yet to have an altercation with someone that's like normal Massachusetts. Like
Yeah, but you're kind of you're just down there like in his inner circle, just doing everyday Morgan Wallen stuff, right? I mean, that's kind
right.
of
But I
yeah.
mean
So
we still go out though to restaurants or bars and stuff where you're kind of like you dealing with general public again, but again, like the mailman or like the trash people, like the neighbors are all super friendly. We're in Massachusetts.
yeah,
I'm used to someone throwing a rock at you. That's their way of saying, "Hey, man, hope you're well."
yeah.
Yeah,
So that was one of the weird things that I encountered when I left home for the first time and started touring a lot more was so Charleston is considered, or at least was, I guess it still is considered the nicest city in the United States, like the most polite, kindest, nicest
yeah,
place.
I believe it.
And I grew up here, and so people who come here from out of state or move here, they I've heard them say like it's a little disconcerting because if you come from somewhere like Los Angeles or you
Oh,
come from New York
yeah,
or you know and people are all of a sudden just nice to you, it probably throws you off. Like you're skeptical that like, what do you want from me? Like,
Yeah.
what do you want from me? Because when you go to Los Angeles, that's the vibe is you feel like everyone wants something from you. And they're not nice, but you still feel like they want something. So when someone is nice to you, you're ultra skeptical of why this person is nice to me.
Yeah.
Uh, so when I first left home, I thought everybody was an asshole. I thought everybody in the world, I thought that like everyone I ran into, everyone I met, everyone I saw was a dick. And that wasn't the case. It was just that I was used to people being overly nice, So like if I held the door for someone, and it still happens because I still hold doors for people. Uh, they look at you like you're like they're shocked or that you've done something wrong or you've crossed them or something like that. And it's just how I was raised and what I do. Everyone here in Charleston holds the door for people. The only thing we that and I don't know if this is ingrained or if this is something that has come in with all of the people that are moving here because we have a lot of people moving from California and a lot of people
Oh,
from
of
New York
course. Yeah.
and a lot of people from New Jersey. Uh, but no one uses a blinker anymore when they drive or at all ever. I don't know if we ever did, but like no one uses blinkers here. I don't know if that's just like we're just so polite that you should just know what we're going to do, that we're
Yeah,
not going to do
yeah.
anything
Just
wrong.
people use their turn signals with their hands out the window. It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah. But yeah, man. Is that just like completely throwing you off your game that people are nice? Like you don't
Yeah,
have to
it's
react to
just
anything.
weird. Yeah, it's just weird because I'm so used to, and I don't usually go out when I'm home anyway. Like I'm very a homebody, but it's just I don't know. It's just everyone just seems super nice, and the weather is much warmer down here, obviously, than
Yeah.
New England, which is doesn't warm up until late spring. So, yeah, it's been interesting. It's some cool people and stuff, but usually when
Yeah.
we're down here, it's like within like a week and a half with you guys or whoever for pre-production and rehearsals and stuff. So to actually be kind of down here, it's kind of cool. And like the places like the hike and like actually get outside the city. Like we drove by this fort the other day, Fort McNeary, Fort
Okay.
Dagley. And it was a Confederate stronghold that actually some weird history there. Like it, whenever it fell, it became a Ku Klux Klan kind of like
Oh shit.
meeting spot or whatever. And then that obviously went away, and now it's like this big national park. But it's like literally a stone's throw away from down the Bridgestone Arena, and we're driving by and going, I had no idea the history, and I guess I never, obviously with war and stuff, the East Coast for sure, all these forts and stuff. But it's kind of cool to see a part of history here where it's like just outside the city, this cool big national park. It's got this crazy huge American flag flying above it. And it was just like, man, it's kind of surreal that when you're down in Nashville, you think it's Bridgestone, it's the main drag where all the bars are and honky tonks, all that bullshit. But there's actually some cool places to hike and
Yeah.
go out. And the history in this area is amazing too. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
man.
by you got so much the forts and all the military history there. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing, man. Like when you come down and we go out boating around and doing whatever we're doing is, you come into Charleston Harbor through the jetties and you know, out in front of you is Fort Sumter, where the
Oh
where,
yeah,
where the Civil War started, and then Fort Moultrie is off on the Mount Pleasant side, and that's what happened is the cadets from the Citadel, uh, who were, I guess, fighting. No one was fighting yet, but they were aligned with the Confederacy, and Fort Sumter at the time was a United States
yeah.
fort. The cadets at Fort Moultrie fired on Fort Sumter, and that's what started. Leave it to a bunch of fucking college kids, man, a bunch of yahoos to start a
Uh,
war, right? Nothing's changed. uh, but yeah, man, those two forts are right there when you first come into the
yeah.
harbor, and then as you go into the harbor more closer to the battery, which is the seawall that runs around the front of the city. It's really kind of considered it's the point of the peninsula of Charleston. It's called the Battery because there were cannons that lined that area from the Revolutionary War all the way through the Civil War, and they still have cannons there. But it's kind of a seawall. But between Fort Sumter and the Battery is um, um, and a like a fort of a sort of a fort called Castle Pinckney, and it's just it's just sort of these concrete walls that are up. There's not really much to it anymore, but there's there's a flagpole in the middle of Castle Pinckney, and you never know what kind of flag is going to be flying there. It's actually, and I think that I don't know for sure. I don't know if there's like a uh, a group that oversees the flags, or if people just bow their boat up there, because it says you're not supposed to bow your boat up there. There's signs everywhere that say, don't no anchorage and no,
Yeah.
and it can be kind of treacherous right there too, just because if you're just trying to get your boat up there. There's a place where there used to be a dock that came off of it, but that's gone. But right now the Welsh flag is flying. Like there's a giant Welsh
Huh.
flag flying above it. Sometimes it's an Irish flag. Sometimes it's the gay pride flag. Sometimes it's the American flag. When I was a kid, it was the Confederate battle flag
Yep.
would fly occasionally. Um, you don't see that as much anymore. Sometimes it is. So I'm assuming that it's just people just sort of go out there, and whoever has the balls to bow their boat up and take a flag and run it up the flagpole at Castle Pinckney, as long as it's not offensive. I've seen the Confederate flags come down pretty quickly, of course,
Right.
um uh but
Did you name your boat yet, or do you have a flag for your boat?
I this has been an ongoing thing with me and Kelly about naming the boat. Um, and I have one name that I like a lot, that just kind of makes sense to me because of what that boat is. And then there's some other names that we've thrown around. And I think Kelly's finally kind of resigned to the boat the boat name that I originally came up with, because I'm having a hard time picturing it as anything else. Uh, it's the Riff Raft
Yeah,
with a
that's great.
T, right? The Riff Raft, because man, it's like that boat is nothing but like me and my buddies on the boat throwing down, doing pirate shit, causing mischief, doing whatever, and it just kind of feels like that's the right name for it, is the Riff Raft. And I've designed I got a pirate flag designed for it, which is um Kelly's barn logo has this pelican, right? Kind of the logo for our property and for the barn is a pelican, right? Because we have pelicans all over the place down here. But it says pelican in flight. So I took that pelican, I did a skull and crossbones over the pelican, and then in a red crescent moon like the South Carolina flag up in the corner. I think that's kind of neat.
That's
So
awesome.
that's sort of the riff raft thing. But some of the other boat names though were I
That's-
thought a symptom of being humid was was one. But that seems a little fart sniffy, when it's like, oh, and kind of name the boat after a song that you wrote is kind of weird.
that would be
But
awesome, though.
uh, the Clean Sanchez, she didn't like that one at all.
Yeah, well, I think
Pellet,
she'd have to explain that more often than she probably wanted to.
but no, but like Sanchez, like the
Yeah,
clean SAND dash
yeah,
THEZ. It's the Clean Sanchez. Um, what was another one? Pelicant was
that was
one that we
cool. Yeah,
uh so the other one that was actually like a real contender. And again, I have not officially named the boat the Riff Raft, or Riff Raft. It's not on the side of the boat yet. I haven't put the name on it yet. Um, but the other one was Low Life, because look, we live in the low country. Uh, where our house is, we have to like sort of watch the tides. Like we're sort of, sometimes if the tide's too low, we're kind of boxed in, so there's no way to really get the boat out. So we're kind of beholden to the low tides. But my favorite part is that on Kelly's phone, whenever she types her own name into the phone and she's not paying attention, for some reason it auto corrects Kelly to low life, which, which is, so I could say that I named the boat after my wife, which would be funny. So that's actually like another contender for it. But I really think, man, Riff Raft just seems
it
to be
sounds
like,
good. It's got a good play on words too,
yeah, it just seems like
and
it's
it fits
it's
like the Rocky Horror Picture Show too. The bellhop guy, Riff Raff.
yeah. So um but yeah, it's just more of like an attitude thing. It's like we me and my buddies like to get in the boat and take it over to the beach for lunch, to this place that the I think it's called the Bounty Bar is what it's called. It's out at Folly Beach, but we've just nicknamed it Pirate Disco, because it's like it looks like a pirate disco inside. So we just go over there and grab lunch and raise hell. And I don't
What do
drink very
you
much.
what?
I don't drink very much anymore, but man, when I get on the boat doing that stuff, it's hard not to have some beers and have fun.
Yeah, you said some video the other day where it looked like you were filming an episode of like Miami Vice after a
Yeah,
coke
dude.
bust in the middle of the
Well,
ocean.
it's another thing about that boat, man, is I've got a it's almost 28 feet hull length, and then with the engine it's around 30 feet. But it's a blackfin, and it's got two Mercury 300s on the back, so 600 horsepower of stuff. And I mean, it's a heavy boat, like fully loaded. It weighs close to 10,000 pounds, but meaning all the fuel on it and everything. But with those two motors, man, I mean, I get up if I dime it out, I can get up to 60, and just cruising around here. I mean, I'm cruising between 45 and 50 most of the time, which is really fast for a boat. Just for cruising. I mean, it's not like a racing boat or anything. It's
Right.
more of a fishing boat,
What are you
that thing.
packing
But
in your boat for like say you're going out for a day trip? Is there like any extra stuff you have to pack every time, whether it's flares, like
yeah, yeah,
safety
yeah.
shit?
Yeah, you got to have all that stuff. I keep most of that stuff on the boat. Like you have to have life jacket for each person.
Yep.
Uh, if you're going offshore, you have to have an offshore life jacket. So I normally keep, um, I normally keep 8 life jackets on the boat at all times, just because I never know who's going to be on and off, and I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, of course.
Um, but I keep 4 offshore jackets because normally I'm not going offshore with any more than 3 or 4 people to fish. Um, and then you have to have a throwable. Um,
With a rope, like a
well, no, I didn't have to have a rope, just to throw like a cushion or a throwable. And that is supposed to be on deck with you.
a door, like the Titanic.
Oh yeah,
Just
some
a
dude,
spare door.
some girl floating on a door out in the ocean. I'm leaving that. I'm leaving her there. Like, this is weird. All of a sudden, some woman in early 20th century garb floating on a wooden door in the middle of the ocean. I don't know if I'm putting her on the boat with me.
Yeah.
But you gotta have a throwable that's supposed to be on deck with you. You have to have flares. Um, you have to have. Well, you don't. I think that's all you have to have is that stuff. You have to have a VHF radio on your boat.
Yeah, which
Um,
makes sense.
and then it's good to have. What I have is an EPIRB, which is a device that if the boat goes in the water, it activates and pings where you are. It floats and pings where you are. Uh,
Do you have to
I also
communicate like you would with like truckers on the highway? Like, do you guys, other boat people talk like that? Hey,
not they don't talk like that.
okay,
Boat
what's up,
people are
Rusty Scupper? Coming up here, Eric
yeah,
Bass.
boat people are kind of snobs about the radio,
Okay,
man. Like so you normally keep your
etiquette.
radio. You can do one of two things. You can keep your radio on channel 16, which is what most people do. And 16 sort of the all around channel. Like so if you have a mayday, if you have a problem, you can get on there and put your mayday out there. It's just sort of the all around channel. But then there are other channels that are dedicated to other things. Like there's a weather channel, there's Coast Guard dedicated channels. There are uh there are channels dedicated to just talking back and forth. So like on the CB, how like channel 19 is usually like the
Gotcha.
like I guess you could see 16 on the boat is like 19 on a CB, where you just kind of chat back and forth. But people don't like you chatting on there too much, so you'll say something like, you'll see another boat and you'll say, you know, hey, low life, this is riff raff, uh, go to 14 or go to
Yeah,
68 or go to six. It's usually
go to
68,
show
60,
channel. Yeah,
68, 69, 72, I think, are all kind of chat channels. A lot of people chat on 14. Some people chat on 8. You just say good, and then you can just talk about whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, so you either leave the radio on 16, or you can put it on scan, where it'll scan all the channels, and anybody that keys up
right.
anywhere, it'll and I'll usually leave it on scan out in the ocean, just because it's, if someone needs help and they, maybe their radio's not on 16 and they thought it was on 16, or
Right.
whatever. And I haven't had any situations yet where I've heard a mayday or I've had to try to go help somebody, but that's definitely something you do. Like if you hear somebody's in trouble like that and you are anywhere within the area,
Like you almost have to, right?
no, not even almost, like you're required to,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, uh, and so you just, you would, now you have to think about your own safety first too. Like
Oh yeah.
if you don't have enough fuel to get there, and something like that, and you're just going to end up being another problem, then that's a different story. But
Now, that
um,
type of training for that is could you sign up as a boat owner to be like I don't know if there's an organization that actually helps you, sets you up for training, like, hey, how to rescue someone from the water, how to deal with maybe a fire on board, like is that type of stuff you just have to learn as you kind of
yeah, I mean, you just have to. Yeah, that's the other thing about the fire extinguisher.
yeah.
Definitely something you're required. I have three on my boat. Uh, uh, yeah, I mean, it's good to know how to use. Look, I say unfortunately, and I will say unfortunately in South Carolina, the only thing that you don't have to have anything to operate a boat. You don't have to have any sort of license
Really?
or anything like that. You just buy a boat and you can run it. There is a boater safety course that you can take, which is the equivalent of like getting a driver's license for a boat.
Yep.
Uh, and I took that when
And
I,
that must help with insurance too, right?
oh, it really does.
Okay.
And look, man, I'm kind of a Boy Scout when it comes to stuff like that. Like I want to be prepared and I want to know, uh, you know, I want to know that I know what I'm doing. And here's the thing, man, even with all of that stuff, I found myself in a couple of situations where I forgot certain things and it's like, oh yeah, right. This is this. So I'll actually like, once a season, like review that stuff and go back through it. I mean, but yeah, again, man, like there's no real training for uh if there's a fire on the boat
Gotcha.
or anything like that. And there's no training for how to talk on a radio or anything like that. You just got to kind of have to do it and kind of know. I mean, really it's just kind of keeping things top of mind when you head out on the ocean, like, especially when I'm going offshore. I'm always thinking about like, okay, if something goes wrong, you know, what's the first thing, second thing, third thing, fourth thing that I do, kind of you sort of I sort of think about scenarios in the back of my mind, just you know, um, and even if like let's just hypothetically say that I was out fishing and one of my engines went down and I only had
Yeah.
one motor to get back. Well, that's going to be a problem because that boat's so heavy that I'm not going to be able to push really fast to get back. I'm just going to have to kind of let the boat go. So I'd probably get on 16 and tell the Coast Guard, "Hey, this is not an emergency, but I'm just letting you know that I'm down one engine and I'm, heading back in. I might be coming back in after dark and what my plan is and that kind of thing and or I'd call the Coast Guard and go to their channel and tell them that stuff. Um, man, it's better to err on the side of caution and do more and say more than not, right?
Yep. The along those lines, if you were stranded on an island, and, there's so many hypotheticals, but like what five things would you have to bring with you to survive? Do you think? And the reason I ask is I talked to uh one of the guests that had Spirit Talk, Donnie Dust, and I asked
Yeah.
him how often because those shows like Alone or Naked Afraid, you're given or Survivor like 5 to 10 items. And it's interesting hearing those people that are really good at that type of training and survival stuff, how often they change what their 5 or 10 items would be based on how good they get another skill. Like someone like Donnie can make a knife using a rock, so he doesn't need to bring a knife with him because he can
Right.
make. So it's like I'd be curious what you if you had 5 items to bring with you, what would be your five like essential you have to bring in your rucksack with you?
Um,
You have to live like say you have to stay out there a month.
hmm. My first two things that come to mind are a knife and a ferro rod,
Yep.
right? So that's fire and knife taken care of. A ferro rod isn't it called ferro
Fire
rod,
starter,
right?
yeah, fire
Yeah.
starter. Yep.
Yeah. It's those two things I would take. Hmm. I'm always going to get this wrong. Somebody out there is going to be like,
Yeah,
"You
but is there any
idiot."
wrong answer though? Because it's like
Um,
picture we're in like a climate like
okay,
the Monkey
okay.
Island. We're in Monkey Island. We have to live there.
I would say uh let's say Monkey Island. Okay, so knife, ferro rod. Um, uh, do you consider fishing line and a hook as one thing or two
We
things?
consider that one thing.
All right, it's some fishing line and a hook, which is also interestingly enough, I keep in my ditch bag on my boat. I keep
Interesting.
fishing. I keep a spool of fishing line with with three or four hooks hooked onto it and a what's kind of called a sabiki rig, which is uh it's like little feathers on a, and you can get
Yeah.
small fish to bite on it. Uh, I keep that in my ditch bag just in case I'm floating in the ocean for quite some time or something, and I, who knows. But anyway, I would do a monkey. I would definitely do that. Um, so those three things. Um, a container of some sort, like I would say a pan rather than a cup, like some sort of a pan.
Yep.
Um, uh, and I'm gonna go with hmm.
Like I think I would want to bring like a piece of tarp or plastic.
Yeah. Yeah, tarp. Tarp's a good one. I'm thinking tarp, and I'm also thinking uh like a like a like a band saw,
Yeah.
but to cut limbs and that sort of thing. But it doesn't matter. Like, cutting limbs is sort of superfluous for fire because it's going to be too wet anyway to really burn.
Right.
So yeah, I think you're right, man. I think some sort of a, well, either a tarp, or I just said fishing line, so I could use fishing line for. I'm talking about a spool of fishing line. I could use that for tying things off if
Yeah,
I
for
needed
sure.
to, because I was thinking about like some parachute cord or something. But um, yeah, I mean, I think that with those things, I could probably maybe not survive well, but I could survive.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool to take like how to make snares, like how to
Yeah,
that. I
man.
mean, obviously, I don't know how many chimpanzees and stuff I can eat, but like on like a normal island, maybe like a pig or like a squirrel or something like that, where it's. But it'd be kind of cool how to do that because watching those guys do that stuff is
Yeah,
super fascinating.
that's something else too, man. We have pigs on the beach down here around the corner too. That
It's like Noah's Ark crash landed in Charleston
I
and all
know.
this shit's living everywhere.
And that we have horses called marsh tackies that are like wild horses that live down in the marsh and on some of these islands out here. And on we have an island called Oak Island that's sort of near Folly Beach that at one point I
Not
think
the Oak Island that they're up in Nova
not the Oak
Scotia.
Island, different
Yeah,
Oak Island. We have lots of oaks here, but
yeah, same amount
same
of
thing.
treasure. Yeah.
Yeah. But the marsh tackies used to be all over Oak Island. I think they're just houses there now. I don't know what the situation, but I know the horses are still wild around uh somewhere.
I
So
remember when I lived in Maryland, I was married at the time. We drove down to Chickadee Island where the wild horses are,
mm.
and there's all these signs up where it's I think there's in Virginia where it's like, hey, don't pet the horses, don't feed them, they're aggressive. And I'm like, dude, there's no way these horses like I've never seen an
Shit.
aggressive horse. Man, you roll down your window, they start coming with their teeth and their mate
Oh
like
yeah.
they look like zombies.
Yeah. Dude, it's you can if you're kind of loose on a horse pasture in a paddock or something with two or three horses and you've got something that they want, it can, and you don't really aren't you're not
It's
comfortable with
intimidating.
horses. You're not comfortable with horses, like it can be very, very intimidating. Like my wife is comfortable enough with horses where she'll just push them around, like move out of the way, move over here and this kind of thing. Like I'm still like, well, what if I push this horse and it does something, you know? I mean, you'd think that being around horses as much as I am, I've got
Well,
seven of them on my property
horses can they're hyper reactive to like fear, right? Can't they sense if you're afraid of
hmm
them when you're riding them and stuff?
yeah, they have a really good, well, that's how they survive, right? They survive by sensing everything around them.
Right.
And like the other night, man, I'm walking in, Kelly got me to help her walk in a couple of the horses. It was right at dusk, and because it was gonna drop down and be a little colder at night that night, so she was gonna get them in, or it's gonna rain, I think is what it was. It wasn't cold. Um, but we're walking these two horses in, and all of a sudden the horse I'm walking in, who's super chill, like his head goes up and he starts like moving around, and I couldn't see what was happening. And then I turn around, and the horse that Kelly has is doing the same thing to her. And then behind Kelly, a coyote ran full speed, behind them across the property, and I'm the only one that saw it. And she's still trying to get her horse to calm down, and those horses weren't right until we got them into the barn. I mean, they were just completely jacked up, and it was just that one coyote that they knew was there. The interesting thing is my horse reacted first, and it was further away from the coyote than the other horse was.
Yeah.
And well, it kind of makes sense though, maybe because the horse that I had was the older of the two. The one that Kelly had was the baby, and he's still, 4 or 5 years old, kind of babyish. So maybe that was it. But yeah, man, if you get it, like horses are definitely not one of those animals you want to get complacent around. Like even when I'm cleaning stalls and the horse is in the stall with me, like I'm always just hyper aware of where the horse is, even if it's a horse that is there are a couple horses in the barn that are a little more uh schizo than than
Yeah.
than some of the others, right? And usually Kelly will clean those stalls if the horses are in, if
But
I'm
it
helping.
seems like
But
if you're a good animal owner, like my mom's dad was a dairy farmer, and you're talking over 300 cows at any given time throughout for 30 to 40 years, and then some would die and some would go on or whatever, and have to be put down because they get sick or hurt, fall. But people that are really compassionate towards animals, it's almost like the animals they're so receptive to like emotional stuff too. Like I've seen cows cry or all this
yeah.
these animals like react to like these human emotions. It's like
Yeah.
if you're a shitty owner or a terrible farmer or you abuse your animals, it's like I just like I wonder if like the animals can like when they give birth or have new kids and whatever, if they're able to kind of like I'd be curious to see how they're able to tell their offspring, hey, this is a safe space. Like this is like I'm always curious because it's like if you're born, it's like a like those pigs, the gestation crates, or cause I think Hawk just rescued a couple of pigs too. They were being kicked and abused, and you
Yeah.
see them run around the property now. It's like they're have a brand new life. So it's
Yeah, man.
like it's
It
super interesting.
I had a this is really sad, man. My neighbor, a couple properties over from me, who
Yeah,
I don't dig this dude too much. I mean, he's never really done anything to me, but he's kind of, I don't know.
douche.
Seems like kind of a jerk. I don't
Yeah,
know. Maybe he's not. Maybe I'm misreading it, but the couple of interactions I've had with him and the couple of things I know about him lead me to think that he's probably a douchebag. Um, his wife's one of these people that can't leave anybody alone, can't leave the neighbors alone. Like if anybody does anything on their property and she doesn't like it, she'll call the county on them because they didn't pull a permit. And just those kind of people, man. It's just like, come on, leave us alone. We moved out here for a reason. Um, but so Kelly and I or Kelly has adopted a a mini donkey. And
that's
by the way,
awesome.
anyone who's watching this who did the Eric Bass uh stage played bass meet and greet stuff, I don't and again here I'm talking about it, but I don't announce these things, but I gave all of that money to charity that I made off of that.
Yeah,
And one of the things that we did with that money when we got it in was we rescued a bunch of horses who were going to be sent to slaughter. So we paid their bail basically and got them out of the kill pen and enabled other people to adopt. We basically paid their adoption fee or their kill pen fee and rescued them and got them out. Probably at this point, I think we're probably at around 15 or so, 15 to 20 horses and donkeys and mules and mini horses and that kind of thing that we've rescued from draft horses. Like these there was a pair of Amish draft horses that were in the kill pen who had lived together their whole life and
yeah,
they couldn't be separated. And so no one wanted to get them out because they just wanted one horse. And so there's two horses that have lived with each other their whole life and they're bonded. And so we paid to get them out. And they live on a and basically we pay to send them to a rescue and they stay at that rescue until they can be sent
picked
somewhere
up. Yeah,
where people want them. And someone did adopt both of those horses, which is nice. Um, anyway, one of the things we did for ourselves is we adopted a mini donkey. Um, and she isn't here yet because we had to get a place for her to be and stay and live. And so we're in the process of setting up sort of a little side barn for her to
yeah.
live in. Uh, but that fellow that lives behind me had an old donkey in his pasture, and that donkey just it was alone. It's been alone since we've lived here. There's this sort of calico colored donkey, and it's really sad when donkeys are alone because they're very social animals. Donkeys like other animals, and that donkey was just alone by itself all the time. And
Oh, so he did. Okay, gotcha.
a
Yeah,
couple times a day, you'd hear it bray and make some noise, and that would be it. And I told Kelly, I was like, when we ought to go over there and not being condescending or anything. Just say, hey, we've got this new barn now for this other donkey. You know, would you mind if we adopted your donkey and he could come over and live here, with this other donkey? And so that was the plan, was I was going to just approach this guy and again, not being condescending toward him or anything, but
Yeah.
just offering like, hey, and I never got a chance to do it, man. And it was it's the coldest thing, man. I hate to bring everybody down, but um one day Kelly goes, there's a backhoe in the middle of the donkey field over there, and it's been digging a hole. And I was like, oh, the donkey must have died. And Kelly said, no, the donkey's in the paddock with the backhoe. And come to find out, man, they put the donkey down. Now I don't know. The donkey might have been sick. I'm not saying that the donkey's probably really old, but they dug the donkey's grave in front of it. Like the donkey was out there while they were
Oh,
digging the grave. And then the next thing you know, the donkey's not there anymore and the hole's covered up. So the donkey saw its own grave being dug by these people. Yeah, and probably not knowing that's what it was, right? And not at all knowing.
right.
Um, but man, just really sad, dude. I wanted to give that donkey a better life, than what it had. And
Yeah.
it's I'll
But
say this,
talk,
man. I'll say this, dude. Like I still eat meat. I love
yeah.
steak, and I understand. I do. I think about it quite often, what that means. But it has in recent years, man, recently has, because I love animals. I love rescuing animals. I love giving animals a different life. Um, all of our dogs, except for one, have all been rescue dogs. Um, and it's just my that's where my heart is, and it's really had me reconsidering my diet and not to make a political statement or anything, but just and just because it's I'm like you, man. I believe, I mean, I'm around animals enough to know that they have souls, and that even herd animals like cows and horses and deer and those things like that, they have maybe you don't see it on a daily basis, but when you're around them a lot, you realize they all have personalities and they all have
That's why, like, when you look at
things that.
like I know you be Barry have talked extensively about this, but like with like the indigenous people, so like the people that have a connection with not only the land but the animals and stuff and their
Mhm.
spirits, where it's like you're just not gonna you're not killing just to kill. You're using everything, the antlers, the
Yep.
bones for jewelry. It's like I think we've kind of lost sight of this idea of like trophy hunting and stuff, where it's like
Even if you're not a trophy hunter. So one of the things, look, I'm not disparaging anyone in my family at all, but growing up, when I went to hunt, you just hunted. That's what the men in my
yeah,
family
of
did. And so
course.
and so I hunted deer until my mid 20s. Um and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being out in nature. I never really enjoyed the killing part. It always seemed like, at least in the moment, the reason why I did is, especially as a younger man, I'd be proud of myself for killing the deer because everyone else was proud of me. Everyone's like, "Oh man, yeah, way to go." And so that just, it kind of became a different kind of trophy hunting, right? You're hunting for the approval of other people, other men around you. You're accepted in the tribe, so to speak. But I was never taught about. I mean, look, we always took meat and we hunted on a club. So sometimes on a day we'd kill, the club itself would kill, you know, 5, 6 deer, something like that. Maybe,
Yeah.
and maybe that was on a good day, 5 or 6, 3 or 4. Some days more than that. But everyone would draw for meat. We'd put numbers on the meat. Everybody butcher the deer, and everybody would take meat home with them. But that taking the meat home was really, never really seemed to be the most important part. It always seemed to be more about the killing part. And so I've probably spoken about it on this podcast, but there was the last deer I ever killed was just really personal and
Yeah.
and awful, and it just caused me to never want to do it again. And
You had to
and
shoot it
so
twice again, right?
well, yeah,
Or
and
three
it would,
times.
it didn't want to die, and it was, yeah, man. It was just like, it was like
I remember the first time. Again, my mom's side of the family, all farmers and stuff, and up there, deer in their crop, like there's a whole process, and like you have to deer tags and all this stuff. And I remember when as a kid growing up watching them go hunting and stuff and like learning about guns and gun safety and how to like you like push and like have the teams that push out the deer to whatever.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like I remember the first time being there when my uncle shot a deer. He's like, okay. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. As a kid, you're like, oh, you're shooting deer. This you're like you're Davy Crockett. Like this is
Yeah.
awesome. But then my grandfather and uncle were like, well, now I'm going to show you how to cut this open. I'm like, what? And it's like you don't realize that
Mm.
the etiquette, even if the animal's dead, like you're just how to like respect the animal. And like he'd show me like how to or clean it and all this stuff. And like my grandfather would use the antlers to make cane handles
Mm.
or this different stuff. And it's just like there was like a cool process where I learned to respect the process of what actual hunting is.
Yeah, that giving thanks to the animal part
It's
never
super, yeah.
it never happened with me. When I was a kid, what's interesting and also, man, just thinking about when I was a kid also, like saying the blessing before we ate and thanking God for the meal and all
Yeah,
of this stuff. That always seemed like it was always like a problem, right? It's like I'm ready to eat, and like, we gotta say grace. Okay, we'll say grace. But now that I'm older,
yeah.
I think about it differently. I think about it as oh yeah, like I need to give thanks to this animal that gave its life for me, right? And
Yeah.
give thanks to God for providing that as well. And so my perspective changed as I got older. My perspective on not eating everything on my plate changed when I started to think about it as, oh, you're gonna leave this half of a chicken breast, you're gonna leave this whole chicken breast sitting on your plate. Like that was an animal that gave its life, and now you're just gonna throw it away, and you're gonna dispose of it. So I, you know, I think about it way differently now, and like I said, it's causing me to think about, is it necessary to kill something for me to survive and eat,
Yeah.
Now, I do not disparage hunters. I do not disparage anyone who does eat meat. I don't like again, I still do, of course. I don't if I had to kill something to survive, I would kill something to survive. But
Of course.
that's what it is killing something to survive. And I would thank it for its giving its life so I could live. And uh I'll say another thing too, man, is like the first time that you have to like that you wing a dove or something and you have to wring its neck, it becomes really fucking personal. It becomes really personal when you pick up this animal that seconds ago was a perfectly living thing that functioned properly, and you've now made it to
Not live.
where
Yeah.
made it to where it has no chance of survival if you leave it there. So now you have to.
Suffering.
Right. And dude, don't think about that when I'm fishing too. I do. I think about it quite often
Oh,
when I'm
I used
fishing,
to grow up and be like, oh, just a hook. You throw the fish back in the pond, right? But now I'm just like,
Well,
I
but I throw everything back unless I'm going to eat it. I don't keep anything I'm not going to eat. I'm
yeah,
not,
like
I
right.
don't go fishing and harvest meat,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a meat harvester. Uh, but if like during mahi season, I will keep quite a few mahi because I know I'm going to eat them, or vermilion snapper. I love vermilion snapper. They taste delicious, you know. And so if we're going to fish on a wreck or something, and I'm pulling up these vermilions, like they're but I only keep what I'm going to eat. But I always feel bad with those ones that you're going to keep. It's like, okay, this thing is giving its life now. It's over. And one thing that does kind of suck about deep sea fishing sometimes is, you know, uh, of course you're going to tag and release or release whatever you're not supposed to keep. Um, but there are other moments where, in order to get the fish on the boat, you have to gaff it to get it on the boat, and then you've stabbed it, and so it's going to die.
Yeah.
And but we found a big wreck to fish off of. I might have talked about this. I don't know. I don't remember what I've talked about, what I haven't. But we found a shipwreck out there that wasn't marked when we were trolling, and weren't catching anything trolling, so we went back over to anchored up next to the shipwreck. We caught three or four of the biggest amberjack I've ever caught. Like they're huge, huge amberjack. And they're just fun to catch. They're not really known for their eating. You can
Right.
eat them, but um, so I, I threw mine back, but it was so tired that it got eaten by a shark. Now, okay, the shark got fed. That's great, but it's my fault that that fish didn't make it, right? Um, so, and then not to mention the fact that you catch the amberjack using live fish that you've caught, smaller live fish that you've caught. When you first get onto a wreck like that, you put down a smaller rig, you catch smaller fish, and then you hook the live fish back on to catch bigger fish. So look, man, I think about these things. Everything, I know it's the circle of life, and I know it's been going on for billions of years, and that's just what it is. But it doesn't make it. If I think about it too much, it makes it real.
Well, I know,
So
not to disparage other animal life forms, but I love calamari. And then a couple tours ago, you and I, Barry, Big Zach, we're eating sushi somewhere, and we're doing the squid thing. And like I think you said something, or maybe Barry,
it was octopus more than
octopus, where we're
anything.
just
Yeah,
like how smart this creature is.
dude,
And it's like it
I don't
feels
eat.
now, but
Yeah,
now it feels weird. But
I
then I'm
don't eat
like, why don't
octopus.
I feel this way if I'm eating a chicken? But
Yeah,
it's like a weird disconnect. But now so I guess my question, like, who was like the first person to be like, let's eat this really intelligent creature, but let's eat the dumb ones? Is that how they kind of broke it down?
I think it's whatever you could domesticate, right? I mean, that's sort of the way that happens.
Yeah.
What can you harvest, domesticate for meat and for eggs and whatever, you cow eggs especially. Like you can domesticate cow, their eggs are
Oh,
delicious.
they're the best.
Uh, but you can keep these things around and just like just like harvesting vegetables, you can harvest animals, right, to survive. And that's how that started. But something like an octopus, that comes from, I think look, I mean, if you're in Japan or something like that, you're harvesting from the sea. That's what you do. And at some point you're going to harvest an octopus and you're going to see if you can eat it. And it worked out. They don't know they didn't know how intelligent those animals are, that
Right.
they can figure out how to unscrew a jar and that they have a heart in every single. Do you know that they have a heart in every
Yes.
single and a brain? There's a brain in every single
Brain.
appendage, right? Yeah,
Brain stem.
in
Yep.
in every appendage, yeah. Um, and that's a whole dude. Octopus, that's a whole other thing. Like
Well,
they,
even
and
worms, they can grow their old limbs back, right? Like that
yeah,
weird, like camouflage, can
yeah,
figure out numbers, recognize faces, can
yep,
shrink their bodies down.
yep,
It's
yeah. Not only the color change, but they can change the topography of their skin
it's
to
just
match whatever's
crazy.
around them. And
Yeah.
uh, again, the octopus DNA is interesting. And again, I encourage everyone to look this up. Don't just trust me. But the consensus is that if there is something on Earth that is an alien that didn't evolve here, it's an octopus. Because the DNA in an octopus is wildly different than the DNA from anything else here. And, I want to say that we share uh, a disordinate proportion of our DNA with like bananas and stuff, right? Like we're very close to everything around us in DNA, except for an octopus, whose DNA is literally like it's from somewhere else, like almost it was
Right.
like a panspermia thing where it came here on a comet or something,
Right.
or escaped from a UFO or something, like it was somebody's pet that wasn't supposed to be here, and it lives here now. Um, and look, man, just for those reasons, look, man, this is what makes me think. I look at my dogs and I look at how much I love them and how they act and how intelligent they are. And uh, then if you're ever around a pig, it's the same thing. It acts the same way. It it's intelligent. It has personality. It comes up to you and rubs on you, wants you to pet it behind the ears, and you can teach it things. But I don't think twice about eating bacon,
Right.
and so that just makes me feel so terrible. And here's another thing too, man. This is gonna get super woo woo here, but um look, in my listening to and reading about near death experiences, I've talked about this as well, about people talking about their spirit families, that they meet their spirit families, and they're these spirits that are with them that have been with them through their life, and they continue to be with them through maybe future lives, or these spirits stick together as units, as families. And uh, if that's the case, that's very interesting. And so my uh, 14 and a half year old lab passed away when I was on tour on this last record cycle. We were on the
Yep.
we just started the Planet Zero record cycle. Her name was Wembley, and she was like daddy's girl, man. I love that dog, man. And she was my baby. And she passed away on tour. I never, she had a heart attack playing in the yard, and she died having fun and doing what she loved to do. But it
Yeah.
was really tough on Kelly because Kelly's panicking and trying to call me. And dude, we were at one of those places on the road where we didn't have, I had no phone service. And I never wanted to smack the shit out of a bus driver so bad in my fucking life, when I was like, "Hey, dude, you got to pull over. I have an emergency." Blah blah blah. Well, I don't know where. There's nowhere to pull over. I was like, "Pull over here, like right now. Like I'll tell you when I have service. I need you to pull over." Well, here, you can just use my phone. Blah blah blah. And I was just like, "You motherfucker!" Like, if it no people who've never toured before don't understand how bus drivers sometimes are.
Creatures of habits.
They're the X factor on a tour, where it's like, you know they have a lot of entitlement that they shouldn't have. But anyway, uh uh I
Especially
don't
the
get
bad bus driver. Yeah.
I don't get along with a lot of bus drivers, man. But anyway, everyone else makes friends with the bus driver. I never want to make friends with the bus driver. But anyway, so Wembley passed away, and she was she'd been gone a few months, and we were playing a show in Houston, and they always bring adoption dogs out uh to the shows. Well, not always. Some rescues bring adoption dogs to the shows, and Houston's one of those places where you have puppies backstage during the day. And uh, I was going to go and see the puppies before I worked out, because it was right next to the workout trailer. And I walked into the puppies, and Erin Masuda walks
Yeah.
over, and she's holding this puppy, and she hands me this puppy, and it was like this. I held this little girl puppy, and I held her, and then I started scratching her ear. But and dude, it was the craziest thing, where it was like I instantly felt Wembley. It was just like,
Was this Houston?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like I instantly just felt like her. Like it was like almost like
Reincarnate.
I'm not saying that's what it is, but it was just very strange, because I've been around a ton of dogs since then, or up to that point, and never had any sort of thing. And this was just like, and so it was. I called Kelly. I sat there with that dog for a second, and I called Kelly, and I was just like, or I text her, and I text her a picture of her, and I was like, I think I'm supposed to have this dog. And Kelly, I went for my workout. She said, "Well, when your workouts are over with, go back in there and talk to them." Well, I went back in after the workout, and they were gone. Everybody, the dogs had left. They'd packed up, and I was like, I was a little panicked. Uh, but I got a number from Aaron for those people, and I hit him. I was like, "Hey, that dog the one with the orange collar, like that, I need that. That's my dog. Like I need that dog." So anyway, worked out, and I have her now. Her name's Scarlett.
Yeah.
But like I look at her, man, and sometimes I'm like, and she does some of the same things. And she's a different breed. She's a Catahoula. She's not even a lab. And I know dogs are dogs, and I might be looking into it too much, but um, I look at her and I'm like, why are you doing the same thing that Wembley used to do in the same house around the same things? Like, uh, it's very interesting how similar their personalities are. And I look at her sometimes, and I'm like, I'm like, have you been here before? And it kind of feels that way sometimes. I know she's her own dog, and she's got her own quirks and all of those things too. But it really brings into focus the fact that about animals having a soul for me.
Yeah.
And again, I'm probably going soft in my old age, but I'm not sure if I really feel like I should make a real effort to try to um not vegan, but just vegetarian. Like I don't mind
Yeah.
harvesting from animals,
We'll
as long
stop
as
eating
it's
dogs for sure.
for sure. Yeah.
That cultural stuff in China, like the Wuhan Dog Festival where they eat dogs, like I don't understand.
Oh, dude, the
Oh,
dolphin
dolphin slaughter,
harvest,
the
man.
cove.
God,
It's just
dude,
and I guess the ignorance
it's
of me is the anger. I think it's warranted, but again, culturally, I don't like when you hear. I've had friends on the Spirit Talk where they talk about conservation and like the ivory tusk trade in Africa, where these tribes will kill these elephants because they're destroying their villages and crops, and so he goes, you have to look at it like these people aren't from the outside. It looks like why are you killing an elephant? But you don't realize the cultural impact what elephant does to this person's crop.
right. Well,
But
there are organizations now there that will go in and remove those
correct,
elephants, right?
correct, and like
And
yeah,
take them to. But again, man, I no, I get it. I'm not talking about something like that. I mean, that's I'm
the
not just.
dog stuff is ridiculous.
But what's different between that and pigs is my point.
That's what I'm
Like
saying. It's like
the dog
right.
stuff is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, but because you're thinking about it's a dog, it's got a soul, it's got a heart. Well, why doesn't, but
Right. The
again,
pig gestation crates
if
and
you
all that stuff. Yeah.
if you spend time around a pig, it acts the same way. It has the
Oh,
same
they're
personality
awesome.
things and dude, if you spend time around a cow does the same thing. A horse does the same thing. A donkey does the same thing. A deer does the same thing. A bird does the same thing, has personality that comes out. I find it hard to believe that something can have a personality when there's not something running in the background, some software running in the background that causes that personality to happen.
Yeah.
In the same way with a human, if that's my thing about fish. Somewhat it's like I don't feel like there's a program running in the background, a personality program or anything like that. Um, I do with with an octopus. That's different. So, uh, I don't know. Should Eric Bass
I, s-
quit
I
eating
s-
meat? Probably.
I saw a video the other day. I think it was Instagram or whatever, and some guy was playing guitar to like his turkeys, and like
Hmm.
the guy would start strumming like whatever song, like, just whatever, playing some chord progression that whatever. But the turkeys would come up to him and like literally like sit down and fall asleep. And it was
Yeah,
like the most coolest thing. It's like animals react to music as well. It's just like I wish
dude.
there's more studies out there because I've read some.
Turkeys are wildly intelligent,
Oh yeah,
wildly intelligent birds.
yeah. There's some guy doing
Like,
dip and camo just shooting him with a shotgun. It's like
well,
how,
no, the thing is they're really hard to kill because they're so smart.
yeah.
Like that's one of the reasons why turkey hunting is so difficult. They're not easy to harvest. There's a documentary about a guy that raised a family of turkeys somewhere. I watched it. I don't know if it's on Netflix or where it is, but just how smart they are. Like you have no idea how smart they are until you watch that. And you're like,
Right.
oh, these things are on another level for
The
birds.
not to change the subject, but one of the segments we did 2 episodes ago, you broke down like diamond eyes,
Yeah.
and it kind of went viral on TikTok. Which that part now we know TikTok will be shut down in a couple of days, but while it's out there, it was great because people like they had no idea. And I know we kind of talked about how people have perception of songs and how where it came to be. It's like for a song that's been out for so long, the fact that no one didn't know, a lot of people didn't know that story kind of shocks me. So I want like, this time. I know again you hear you guys have talked about when you worked with Darren Doe, but the song "Enemies," everything
Hmm.
from the coffee pot, like the filming of the video is so iconic. The stories you have from that, Brett actually being hit with a real coffee pot.
Yeah.
But when it came to writing that song, what was the process of putting that together? Like, when did you realize that song would have the live impact it had when you hear that people start getting up and go wild?
Uh, so that was a sort of a track demo that I had prior, like I'd recorded. I didn't. I wrote the guitar riff and had sort of a I don't know, a skeleton of something for that song. Um, and I think, yeah, Brent and I went out to write with Dave Bassett, who we've talked about before, and I sort of opened that up. I was like, hey, I've got this thing, um, and here it is. I think the beginning guitar riff was what it was, and the guitar solo section was what it was. I had that recorded, but there was no, the chorus wasn't there or anything like that. It was just sort of a mismatch of things. And we um we put that song into some sort of a form. uh what's interesting, man, is where the genesis of a lyrical idea will come from, and what you begin to write about, and then kind of what the song ends up being and being about. Like I said, sometimes when we talked about that antenna being up and having that conduit open, um, you know, when you're kind of delivered some subject matter to write about, um, it doesn't mean that's 1,000% what that song means in the end. But I remember that when we started writing lyrics for that song, we were talking about Bernie Madoff, and that's when Bernie Madoff, all that Bernie
Oh shit,
Madoff
the
stuff,
Ponzi scheme stuff. Yeah.
all that stuff had just gone down, and he'd stolen like everyone, these people's retirement and life from them, for him to live off of, and for his family and friends to get rich off of, and he ruined a lot of people's lives. And so that's what we started writing that song about initially. It was like we were like, oh, that's Bernie Madoff, dude, man. Like, because sometimes, man, we have to. But the thing is it you start with something like that just as a jumping off point, and then it becomes personal to you, and then you start writing about like how you feel about certain things. And maybe, like, maybe initially Bernie Madoff was like the thing we were talking about when we started writing it, but it ends up that you're writing about the government, or you're writing about uh um you know
Your own
uh
demons.
yeah. And so that was the kernel for the genesis of the lyrics for that song, were were Bernie Madoff. But to my recollection, that wasn't like what the song is about. It was just like that was where sometimes you're just sitting around like, man, we said so much already. How are we gonna? What else is there left to say? That's a conversation that happens quite a bit in writing sessions. Is well, let's talk about something we haven't talked about before. Well, that's really difficult if you're writing heartfelt things, because you know you don't have this revolving door of experiences that are deep, that happen all the time. Those deep experiences happen rarely, and that's the well you're pulling from. uh or those deep emotions, like Enemies is a deep emotion for me about you know just sort of the evil in the world, and the people who want to do harm to you, and
Yeah.
the people who have done harm to you. Uh, and so you start pulling deep from that well and thinking about the people that have wronged you, or um, the people that are wronging your friends or whatever. Uh, so it's difficult sometimes to try to find anything like a new subject matter. So what you end up doing is you find different angles for maybe the same subject matter or something like that. Um, it's yeah, that conversation about well, what do you want to write about? Like that, like, man, if I had $1 for every time that we looked at each other, what do you want to write about? I don't know, you know.
Right.
And like I said, sometimes it's like you hear a word or you hear something like that and you pull that out, and then it becomes, you start realizing what's being written.
Yeah. Well, it's like with you guys, the writing, it's not on the nose. So it is open to interpretation in terms of feelings and emotions, which I think some
We
songs when you hear stuff, if it's too on the nose, it takes away from the power of it because it takes away the relatability, I think, in the
Yeah.
grand scheme for someone listening to a song.
Yeah, that's something that we've been really good at, and we don't do it intentionally. It's just how we write, or how it ends up is you can write about something that is very
Just
on the nose. Like, I know
yeah.
what this is about, but in weaving together words and melodies, and you sort of weave together something that can be taken many different ways. And
Right.
um uh it's interesting, like with the record Planet Zero, how many of my friends who are more left leaning are like, man, you said everything I want to say, man. Like, I agree with you, blah, blah, blah. And then how many of my friends that are right leaning or say the exact same thing? Man,
Yep.
you guys really said the thing that, and it's like, that's perfect. That's what that record is for. That's what it's
Right.
about. It's about humanity. It's about us as a people. It's about, uh, uh, you know, um, it's not about sides.
Right.
And so that's great, you know. Even though probably in writing those songs, if I had to say what the genesis were for this song or the other, one thing might have been something that came from more of a what would be considered a left-wing place, and this one came from something that some people would
Yeah,
consider more
right
of a
wing.
right-wing place.
Yep.
Uh, but you just kind of put it all together into something that feels genuine. And I think that when something feels really genuine like that, it's going to speak to a lot of people. And that's the goal at the end of the day. I just think that we've been lucky that what feels honest to us and what sounds right to our ears as far as lyrics go, uh usually ends up being something like that that's a little more that can sound vague, but it isn't.
Yep.
Like the my solo record when it comes out, we've talked about that somewhat, is about a story and about characters. But something I tried to do in writing that was I don't want to be so on the nose. I have to be on the nose with some things because I'm talking about a story, but there are other songs in there that are about emotions and about, feelings and anger and depression and these sort of things. And so I hope that those songs will be things that people can rely on to for healing, even
Right.
though they're about something very specific. um it maybe the vagueness of them is what lends them to helping people.
Right. It'd be interesting. Well, obviously, if I didn't know you guys or work with you on you guys, like the Plan Zero would be like the perfect way for me to sum up what the last 3 years have been. Just
Mm.
total chaos. No one knows what's going on, who to trust, all this stuff. But it'd be unfortunate if you had to if Shinedown the band had to write a similar album again 10 years down the road, where it'd be like, did no one get it? Like, why are we back at the same hurdle? Like, it's interesting because an album like that should never have to be written again.
Well, the thing is, it will be written again
Right.
because look, the odd thing is the names change, but the people stay the same. Meaning, you know, uh, 20 years ago, it was Iraq War, right? And George Bush and Republicans and all of this stuff, and Halliburton and
Boating.
all of this stuff. And now it's Joe Biden and Democrats and Raytheon and pharmaceutical companies, and it's just the same thing but with a different letter beside it. Yet we're telling the same story. Unfortunately, you know, some people are too blind to see that it's all the same side. They think that like their side is right and the other side is wrong. It's interesting for me to watch Hollywood types and certain musicians now, you know, stump for a war, you know, whereas they were the ones against the Iraq war. And the people that were for the Iraq war are now against the war in Ukraine,
Right.
or, you know, and it's all the same side, man. It's all the same people doing the same things. You have to get into the minutia and into the details of what's going on, and be able to pick out right from wrong and what is actually, an issue. And they're always super complex. And by the way, the people that benefit from these things know they're complex issues, so that they're so complex that no one can find black or white in them, and they're
Right.
trying to. So I guess point being is, yeah, man, they'll be in, you know, the same people that wrote, look, Devour was about George Bush and about, the Iraq, the war in Iraq. And, here we are, you know, however many years later, 15 years later, whatever it is, and you could write the same thing about the Democrat administration doing the same thing
Right.
now, you know, uh, because if you think that the war in Ukraine is about Ukraine, you're fucking high. It's about
Correct.
it's about economic things, and it's about corruption, and trying to keep things quiet. And it's not about Vladimir Putin. If it were about Vladimir Putin, why didn't we care when he invaded Georgia? Why didn't we care when he invaded
Trivia.
Crimea?
Yeah.
Because it didn't benefit us then. It didn't benefit our politicians then.
Right.
you know Now there's a benefit to it, and who fucking knows what that is. but
Right.
there's a benefit there, you know. Um, so yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my stump with that,
No, it's one of those things too
but
where it's like we're
but
good.
we will be writing the same record again in 10 years probably,
Yeah,
you know, or someone could.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I know we're good friends with David Draymond, Disturbed.
Yep.
Um, I've never met Roger Waters.
Hmm.
I've watched the only actual interview I've actually seen with him was the Joe Rogan one, where I thought he came off as, but he's also very polarizing. He's the exact opposite of David Draymond, and it's
Right.
like I don't know Roger, I know David. I don't know enough to pick sides. I care about human life and massive. Like I'm against all that. But
Yeah.
like I wonder if we actually were to put those two in a room, would they able to work it out, or is this something where it's so deep rooted in beliefs and who's right or wrong? It's like human lives, a loss of life is still a loss of life, and it's
Yeah.
like how could we can ever all just get in the middle and kind of figure out how
Well,
to end this?
man, this is it's a
Because I feel bad. Like I feel
again
bad.
it's a complex issue, even though those two sides would tell you that it's not complex at all.
Right. It's super
It's
complex.
it but again, you know, David is my friend,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of respect for him for standing up for what he believes in and standing up for his people, because
Right.
that's what you do.
Correct.
Because if anyone who says that hostages being taken in the manner that they were
Women and
taken
children. Yeah.
October 7th, and the blood that was spilled in the streets, and the video of women being dragged through the streets, uh, and children being murdered, uh, you know, if if you can't look at that and see evil, then uh
You're the problem.
you've got a real problem.
Right.
But also, if you can't look at the side and figure out that the government of Hamas, or the Hamas who is running Gaza, is the problem for the people in Gaza. And by the way, those people are suffering, right? But they have a terrorist organization at their helm,
Correct.
and therefore, uh, the people stand no chance. The lie that's been sold is that it's all Israel's fault. And I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have faults, and I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have um uh you know, issues in the way that they've gone about certain things. Um, but the look, again, it's a complex issue.
Yeah.
Look, the fact that Israel has offered a two-state solution on multiple occasions to Palestine and to the Palestinian government, who just happens to be a terrorist organization, and they have said, "Go fuck yourself. We want all of it," you know, and you've got college students out, you know, stumping around going from the river to the sea, and they can't tell you what the river is or what the sea is. You know, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, but they have no idea what they're saying or
Correct.
what they're talking about. Um, that they are out there, you know, when you've got LGBT activists out there, uh, supporting Hamas, which is a
That
an
kills.
entity an
Yeah.
entity that would have them dead.
Correct.
Um,
Stoned to death.
yeah, and you know, look, I again, I'm not saying I have it figured out, and
Well, I just
I'm also not saying that I have all of the details either. But um, you know,
you're just deep rooted in, because I remember when I was there, and we can't get into really specifics, but with Obama, we were staying in Israel, we were doing stuff in Palestine and the Gaza Strip and all this stuff. And every time we leave our counterparts in Israel, once we got to the Palestinian border, we'd have to switch vehicles, drivers, everything, because they would not let the other party inside their own country. And
yeah,
we're talking heavily armed state level diplomats and stuff, and they just that angst. It's like you get the leader of the free world. We're just moving around. And it's like
yeah.
that's the first time where I'm like, this is real life.
You basically look, man. You've got two people that lay claim to the same land,
Yeah.
and no one is. I say no one is willing to compromise. It seems as though Israel is willing to compromise and has been willing to compromise. Um, but look, man, you have to put yourself in the in their shoes as well. When you have rockets being fired constantly into your country from somewhere else, what are you going to
Yeah.
do? And they're killing your citizens. What are you going to do? And look, man, the Palestinian activists, uh, you know, don't not have a point where Israel is in retaliation. Sometimes the retaliation seems uh, uh, to not meet the same level as what happened. It seems to be over the top. Uh, this bombing hospitals, and this is what is being put forth, right? Is that they're bombing hospitals, or they're bombing schools, or whatever. Um, some of that which ended up being not true. That whole bombing of a hospital thing wasn't true at all. Actually, in the end, the hospital's still there.
Right.
Um, they filmed the parking lot beside the hospital and say that the hospital was
But
gone.
that the media, mainstream media,
Uh,
was sure to put that out real quick.
right. But again, man, you know,
It is
it's a complex issue. I think that when people are like, well, why don't the people of Palestine just do away with Hamas? Well, they can't. All the aid money that gets sent to Palestine goes to Hamas. It doesn't go to the people.
correct.
The people never see the aid. There is a, if you want to look at it as a genocide, there is fine there. Since that's the word that's being used, there is a genocide going on, but I don't think it's from Israel. I think it's from Palestine. I think it's from Hamas. Those poor people in Palestine deserve better than what they have, but they're in a quagmire that they can't get out of. And look, if the United States, if we really cared about that stuff, like we're acting like we care now, if as a country, if we really cared about it, we would have gone in and freed those people from that terrorist organization
Yeah.
that runs their country. And look, not that our track record of installing governments around the world is that great. It's fucking terrible. But um yeah, man. So I guess ultimately what we're talking about here is there's a lot of politics that goes on. But
Yeah.
if you can't look at the humanity of what's going on,
Right.
meaning these people, there's still over 100 hostages missing. We don't know if they're alive or dead. There is devastation in Gaza and the West Bank. Devastation, and uh those people are suffering wildly. And if we can't come together as a people and just go be pro human life, on both sides, uh, then I don't know if we have a future as a people. And that's been the
Right.
problem throughout time, is there are certain, look, man, honestly, I'll just say it, in the last 30 years, 40 years, you go back to Vietnam, it seems to be the expendable people always seem to be, you know, non-white ethnicities. We can just roll into these countries and just oh, they're brown people. So it's not real. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And at the same time, you know, it on a human level, Ukraine shouldn't be any more important than Libya or something, or than, uh, you know, I don't know. I, I just think
Yeah.
that our governments, it's our governments, man. It's not the people. Like all of us would. I think that if humans are maybe not this easy, but it seems to me like if we got government out of the way, that the people could actually solve a lot of these issues. If we had actual representation, like if David Draymond represented Israel, and uh and Roger Waters represented, Palestine, just
Yeah.
hypothetically, or pick another Palestinian activist, who, not even activist, yeah, pick another Palestinian
Who
activist
has
who's
a
not
voice?
who's from there, so not
Yeah.
not a white British man,
Yeah.
you know, and you remove these governments and all of the baggage that comes with them, and the economic interests and all of this. I wonder how quickly these things could be solved.
Right.
I bet David Draymond could solve, along with another rational Palestinian,
Right.
could they could solve their differences. And uh
Well, it's
I
like
mean,
if there's peace, you lose money. Like no one's making money in peace.
no, man, uh but look at the Muslims who live inside of Israel, who are Israeli citizens, the Muslims who are and the Christians who are Israeli citizens. You know, they have equal vote, they have equal. They're not lesser than citizens. The Muslims in Israel have the same rights as the Israelis in Israel, or they are Israelis, really. They might not be Israel, but they are Israelis, and so um, this idea that Israel is vying for the extermination of Muslims or something is silly. And but I'm not sure that that it can't be said that some of the Muslim countries, some, not all, some of the Muslim countries are vying for the destruction of Israel.
Right.
Uh, that seems to be blatantly obvious to me. Um, so I think that if we took the radicals out of the situation and we had rational people, I believe that there could be a solution,
Right.
something reached. But
How about that's drastically changed this conversation. But the 1893 World's Fair Chicago,
okay.
the history of that was like no, because the other day you and I were studying like these ancient civilizations that would build like these crazy churches in the
Yeah,
ground or
yeah,
Petra. Like,
yeah.
how are humans doing this stuff?
They're
Well, like
not.
I went down this rabbit hole with like the Tartarian, like this whole idea of the
Oh,
Tartarian
right.
and
Yeah.
like the power source and like this whole Edison versus Tesla type thing.
Why don't you
And
tell everyone who the Tartarians are, John?
I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's like this ancient civilization, I guess, that created or harnessed the infinite power, basically. And it was tied to like the World's Fair in 1893, the St. Louis, all these fairs that popped up. They built like these 700-acre, it looked like ancient Rome, downtown Chicago, St. Louis. And then after the fair was done, supposedly all these buildings were demolished and very few were left behind. It's like all this stuff was built within less than 2 years, yet these things look like ancient, like being back in Europe. And like
Yeah.
all these theories about like what if the Roman Empire and all this stuff actually was in America. I mean, some of the stuff's kind of crazy, but the idea of like this power
What
source.
what's interesting to me about that, I'm going to take this a different direction than probably the way you want to take it. What's interesting to me about that is all these world fairs where all of this great technological advance happened and these buildings were built that looked like temples
Yeah,
and then were just removed like they were nothing when it was done.
right.
You're talking about a time before the income tax. You're talking about a time before a large central federal government who is just a giant siphon for everyone's money and everyone's mental well-being. It was a different time, man. It was a time it was a time of promise. And so uh the uh the funds could be allocated for something like that to happen, for something like that to be built. Now, whether the Tartarians were given the money and they did it, and they knew how that's a different thing, right? But the reason why you don't see things like that anymore is because I'll say it again, all of our money goes elsewhere. None of our money stays here
Yeah,
where it should be, right? And so there is no chance for anything like that to be built or to happen. We don't even have World's Fairs anymore,
it
you
just
know?
seems weird that all this stuff would be built and just demolished.
Yeah, dude, just um, probably because they knew they could just do it again. You
Yeah.
know,
Like that,
uh,
even the Ferris wheel at the Chicago World Fair could hold like 4,000 people.
yeah. I mean, they all
That
died, but
Yeah, I mean, it was only one way. It was a one way ticket.
yeah,
But like, it's just crazy that shit. You go to a fair now, and the biggest roller coaster is holding maybe what 100 people tops.
yeah. This is Dr. Greer, right? The lost century.
Yes,
He talks about the fact that we should be. Now, we talked last week about or maybe the week before about military tech. Some people say is 300 years in the future.
right,
We, Dr. Stephen Greer posits that we should be socially 100 years, a whole century ahead of where we are now.
right.
But we're being held back from by greed, by oil companies and pharmaceutical companies and our government who just want to live a lavish life, and people in our governments who want to live a lavish life, and billionaires who want to live a lavish life, and they won't allow any of this tech that we have access
Well,
to
that's
be
why I
pushed
think
forward.
like the whole TikTok thing, where I get the Chinese company, I get that, but anyone that sees a credit card line, your shit's out there. And so it's
Yeah.
like part of the reason why I like TikTok is yes, there's some dumb stuff, but the information that gets uncensored that gets put out there. Now it's up to you to kind of research yourself and figure out if it's just something crazy, but it's uncensored, it's out there. It's almost like the government is worried that more people are gonna start going on to these ideas
Right. Well,
about consciousness, about interstellar, about all these
it
ideas that we
becomes a
talk about.
it becomes a First Amendment issue for me. I am with you on the China thing. Like if you have a government
Correct.
who's designed an app, and look at you look at the way that China regulates their TikTok, and I think this
Oh,
is out there pretty good.
math
Is
problems.
Yeah, so here the reward is you get more followers and you get more attention if you do something stupid. If you eat a Tide Pod, or uh you do a stupid TikTok dance while you're working at a hospital and you should be taking care of patients, you know, all of a sudden you get all these followers and this stuff happens. Well, in China, it's the opposite. If you do something stupid, it gets throttled and no one ever sees it. If you do something worthwhile, like math problems, or you're coming up with philosophical ideas, and I'm talking about kids, like they're they are encouraged. That's the stuff that gets you followers and gets you bumped up in the algorithm in China versus here. So yes, it is being weaponized in a way by those companies. They've weaponized the fact that, okay, the more stupid shit Americans do, the more the algorithm's going to feed that. In
Right.
China, it's the opposite. The more things you do for society, or the good things you do, or the smart things you do, you show your intelligence. Those things get you higher up the social food chain there. So yes, that is happening, but it's too late for us. The stupid shit's already out there. It started with the real world. It started with reality television, and it's never stopped. Um, yeah, the dumber you can be, the more popular you're going to be. Uh, so that's already out there, and our government has let that run rampant, and they know all about it. This is a free speech thing. I think this is more about, uh, and it's interesting to watch the ones who are on board with this, because my eyes on them. And by the way, I went through a period of saying the opposite. I went through a period of saying, "Oh yeah, let's get rid of TikTok because of the things I just mentioned."
Yeah, of course.
So I had to unlearn a bit. I had to kind of change my views on this after reading and looking at it, and looking at what the potential is for something like this. The potential is that, okay, we ban TikTok. Well, then that kind of opens the door. We make a law, we ban TikTok. That opens the door for the governments to ban Elon Musk and X, because they definitely don't like that.
Right.
Now, when Twitter was bought by Elon, all of a sudden this system that was set up, that was ingrained, that was attached at the hip and coupled to our government, was then deconstructed, and the government didn't have access to tell Twitter what it could and couldn't allow, because that's what was going on. Something called the Twitter papers and the Twitter
Yes.
files. Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi and a couple of other uh, journalists, left-wing journalists, actually, um, basically whistleblew this whole thing. And I encourage everyone to look into the Twitter files and into the Twitter papers, because it's unreal what our government was doing to violate people's freedom of speech and their rights. Um, but then once Elon bought Twitter, all bets were off with that, and they didn't have that control anymore. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this just isn't a backdoor way to get into to shut down X as well.
Oh, for sure.
Because if you can shut down TikTok, then that opens the door for you to shut down, meaning our government, to shut down anything else they don't like.
Right.
And uh, so I think that it's a huge freedom of speech issue, and uh, I would hope that even if it does pass, if it does pass, our Supreme Court would look into it, and whatever law is passed, they would come down as it's unconstitutional and would undo that.
Right.
I would hope that would be what would happen. But um, it's yeah. I just again I had to kind of I had I had to admit I was wrong about something. And
Yeah.
I may have not wrong about it. It's just what is worse, having an app out there that's run by one of our uh economic right now economic enemies, so to speak, global enemies. They're not really enemies, but I guess they are. I don't know. I don't see anybody as an
I'm not gonna say
enemy
the people
to
more than
me. The
government.
people, well, no,
Yeah.
yeah, not. I don't
Yeah.
consider any people enemies, and that goes back to what we were talking about before too, like
Yes.
about uh, I've got some great Muslim friends, and I've got some great
Yeah, of course.
Israeli friends, and I love them all equally. But anyway, I'm not saying the Chinese are our enemy, but I'm saying that I guess our governments are
Uh,
are conducting
our representation of both parties
a
is,
non-kinetic war right now, right?
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I had to, yes, is it bad that that's going on? Yeah, man, they're eating our lunch with that right now. They're building a society built around respect. And now, whether the people are free or not, that's another thing. But they are fomenting an atmosphere of self-worth and self-improvement rather than, eat Tide Pods and run your OnlyFans.
Yeah.
you know,
Twerking and
um, yeah. Uh, so that's bad. But is shutting that down worth the opening the door to our government to then just have free reign to disassemble anything they don't like?
right.
And you know, that's what I'm more scared of my government than I am of
Yeah.
any foreign government. My government scares me more than Vladimir Putin. My government scares me more than uh than anything in China. You know,
Yeah.
so the greed and the want for control and the want for money and the want for
That's
power.
all it is, the control. That's all this
Yeah.
is.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so
It's just such a, for me, it's just like, I use it now where I'm like, again, some of the dumb stuff is super dumb, but it makes me laugh. But like you go down with some of the stuff where it's like, I follow this page on there it's basically Edison versus Tesla. And they
yeah.
basically share these different stories about inventions and the competition that people wanted. And it's like, it's kind of cool because it's like, it might not be all truthful, but you go back and look at these old articles and stuff where it's like these old case studies and stuff they're working on. It's like, it gets me excited because like imagine if these guys actually work together. It's like this page like poses all these theories and ideas like why they're in competition with each other and stuff with patents and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
Edison was not a good dude.
no, and then like at his funeral or whatever, Tesla wrote something where he's just like he was a loner, he had no friends. It was I mean very it sounded very Trumpish. Where it's like he was a loser, like very like how he said it when this guy is dead. But a lot of people said that Edison was a dick,
Yeah.
a super dick.
Yeah. He basically um I'm gonna step out on a ledge here. He actually, as if Israel and Hamas was not enough of a ledge. Uh, but Edison was very much like a Steve Jobs, where Steve Jobs stole a lot of ideas. He stole a lot of IPs. He stole a lot of intellectual property uh, that he was shown. Like everybody thinks that Apple invented the mouse. Well, Steve Jobs saw a mouse at a visit to like IBM, I believe, and the people at IBM were showing him this mouse that they had come up with, and he took that, stole it, put it out before they could put theirs out. That's a very Edison thing to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, you know, a lot of people don't know that Tesla actually worked for Edison when he was in his younger years. So he was helping Edison, and he was trying to show Edison his ideas, and Edison wanted nothing to do with them. He thought they were stupid. And so then when Tesla broke away and said, okay, I'm going to go out and do my own thing, he then started to started to outdo Edison. And Edison basically,
Jealousy.
yeah, basically Edison became funded by JP Morgan, I believe, or
Yep.
something. and was basically given more money than Tesla had to basically, and he took a bunch of Edison, he took a bunch of, stole a bunch
Teslas.
of Tesla's patents, and it was the big war on uh, alternating current versus direct current, and Edison was a direct current person. I believe this is correct. If I'm not, put it up in the top and correct me. But Edison was a DC person, and direct current was, just sending the current straight out from a power plant and having multiple power plants all over the place. And alternating
Right.
current, I believe alternating current was you would have these substations that would re-up the power and re-up the power and re-up the power. And that was Tesla's idea, and it was way more efficient. But in order to prove Tesla wrong, Edison would stage these things trying to make alternating current look dangerous. It's the same thing that happened with the vaccine, right? Or with
Yeah.
people. He basically tried to smear this great idea that he had, right? Where uh, I think in one thing, Edison staged uh, an event where he brought an elephant up on stage and using alternating current electrocuted the elephant in front of everybody and killed it to prove that Tesla's idea was dangerous, even though it wasn't. We use AC.
Correct.
Tesla's version is what we use now, but Edison was just so power hungry and money hungry. And then I believe, again, put it up in top if I'm wrong, but I believe that basically somehow J.P. Morgan ended up with, it could have been someone else, not Morgan, but basically ended up with Tesla's patents and took those patents to Edison. And Edison basically, that's why we know Edison's name. That's why Edison's name is attached to power companies and not Tesla's name. But he was using Tesla's patents. And Tesla built the first hydroelectric power plant, I believe, at Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Uh, so but more people know. Well, look, in the last 20, 30 years, his name has come on really strong, and people have started to realize what a genius he was. But everyone, Edison is a household name, not because he wasn't smart. I mean, Edison was smart. He didn't steal everything, and just like Jobs was smart, he didn't steal everything. But um, some of those things are suspect. Where some of
Yeah.
his ideas came from and whatnot. And just by all accounts, and again, I didn't know the man, but by all accounts, Edison was just really a dick, you know.
When
So
the New York
and te-
Times,
and Tesla died penniless. Uh, some people say he jumped out of a window. I'm not so sure he
right, get pushed.
didn't get pushed out of a window
Right.
because the trunk that he had in his hotel room that had, or his apartment, was a hotel or an apartment, I forget which one, but that had all of his paperwork and all of his writings and all of his knowledge was opened, and everything inside of it was missing. So
Right. In his when Edison died in 1931, the New York Times interviewed Tesla.
hmm,
And he had this to say. He had no hobby, cared for no sort of amusement of any kind, and lived in utter disregard of the most elementary rules of hygiene. And that
hmm.
was Tesla saying this about Edison. So it was like, it's just
uh,
awesome. I love it.
that's
But
fucking
even
perfect.
today's age, I know we have to wrap up soon, but like even in today, like you had these type of people going against each other or competing. Where today, and we talk about this all the time, where it's like I kind of miss that kind of playful yet serious yet like the competition of science.
Hmm.
Like we don't have a we like that. That's why I love like the space race because it seemed like
Yep.
fun and engaging. There's not really a Mars race, but like where's the next type of like I wish there was a thing right now where it's like people competing in a good way to like new energy sources or technology where it's
Yeah,
like
it's
we're
fun.
just kind of lost.
It's funny how those things don't really exist anymore, right?
No, it's
And
no.
think back about what I was talking about earlier about how no one wants us to advance past where we are. We've talked about this before, but the fact that if other than our phones and our computers and the internet, okay, those three, like other than the internet and our phones, basically, the world is no different than it was in 1970.
Yeah.
It's the same world. We fly the same airplanes. We burn the same fuel.
Airplanes
We
actually might have got worse, honestly.
Yeah, well, yeah, interesting with that, right?
Jeez.
That dude,
Oh God, I even forgot
that
about that whistleblower dude. Yeah.
that guy died right down the street here.
Yeah, he got 2 shots in the back of the head, suicide.
Yeah, suicided himself for whistleblowing against Boeing. Hmm, interesting.
Uh,
Uh, but man, hopefully that's the kind of shit, man. I'm just
oh
like
yeah.
there has to be some sort of justice in this world, man. But I maybe not in this world. Justice never seems to happen in this world, but
Yeah.
that's why I'm hopeful that there is some sort of justice in the next, but
Yeah.
some sort of thing that comes down. Uh, well, if we weren't canceled last show, we're canceled this show.
For
So,
sure.
yep.
But yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, great job, John. Way to
Did,
use your brain.
were you naked from the knees down?
No, I wasn't naked from the knees down, but we can
Yeah.
be naked from the knees down next show if you want.
Awesome.